Hold on to your fucking balls. This is gonna kill you.
It's over, bitch.
Good girl.
Check.
I hate that stupid mouse.
You like that shit, Harvard?
The red sky fading in the distance. The peace sign burning innovation from God. Please help me. The red sky fading in the distance. The peace sign burning like a vision from God. Please help me. Can we make something beautiful with no? Tonight just me without a soul, without a brain, without anything anymore. I'm just me without a soul, without a brain, without anything anymore. I have no spirit everlasting. I'm nothing, I'm less than nothing, I'm just spit in the wind. That's so wonderful, isn't it beautiful? I know that you are doing good, every sunrise brings a new tomorrow. The night explodes in the light for the shooting star. City 2016, your bus home at 19, chain link crane and concrete, lashing out and falling, breaking quarters out of the hardwood, SkyTrain, joys calling wet, losing, floating, knowing, stopping pain from showing, held to me in the moment, scream internally, so exits me through all the lines I write in basements far away. If I can purge this broken heart in haunted words, well, it's surrounding. And like the city nights just drift away. I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't fix it by myself. I couldn't do it alone. I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't fix it by myself. Everyone else seemed so strong, and I tried to offer up my pain to be understood. But I don't think it's my pain that can be understood or needs understanding. There's not a lot of pain in the world that makes any sense. wonder where all this pain comes from and this evil is, and where it lives. Future wide open, but defined as broken. Every achiever hoping, wishing, aching, never knowing the pain already, but so I don't fucking die. Interpret it as everything I've got to offer in this life. Fuck no! Time is the circle. Everyone else seems so strong. I tried to offer up my pain to be understood. But I don't think that it's my pain that can be understood. I need understanding. There's not a lot of pain in the world that makes any sense. Maybe people need to be understood instead. I tried to understand why it happened like that, but it just made my soul break down. And I didn't want things to go like that for a while. I was confused, but now I think I understand.
Alright, how's everyone? Let's see here. See how the audio's doing this time around. It's actually a lot better than it used to be. Is the music currently playing too loud? How are we doing? Is it working? I made those changes last time and I kept it that way, so hopefully the audio is a lot better than usual to some degree. You guys tell me. Everything sounds great. Karyotype, my biggest audio critic. Good job, Karyotype. Alright, sorry for the light. It'll be off at some point tonight. Just got somebody here working on a different part of the room, so I gotta have to leave it on at the moment, so apologies if the light's bright, but it'll be taken care of. Trust me, it's too bright for me too. Hold on a sec. Let's start with this. This will be fun. If the music's too loud or anything, tell me. Okay. So, earlier somebody asked or mentioned something before I get into what I was going to get into. Somebody said, oh, by the way, to everyone here, I'm going to say what's up. Because what I got right now? T-Sips, cool. Glad you like the music. Tay, what's up? BB, no centrist allowed. What's up, Luler? and karyotype. So, whoever else has decided to join me or is here, or will be here, or was never here. But Luler mentioned something that I just want to go over really quickly before I talk about what I was going to talk about, because otherwise I'll forget. So Luler says, I don't understand getting help from other schizoids. Yeah, well, I would say most schizoids have trouble understanding why they would attempt to, or how they could get help from anyone, much less other schizoids, right? Well, not much more, actually. I wouldn't say it's much less. So I'm running under a few assumptions. Okay, so assumptions, theories, and based on both a combination of my understanding of literature, conversations, and thoughts I've been experimenting with for over 2 years now, I think 2 years at least, and my own experience as now a 38-year-old guy who's been schizoid for a good portion of that, and schizo for probably an even longer portion. And by schizo, I mean spectrum, not schizophrenic. Okay, so this is what I think. I believe that when you get people, this is common sense, right? You get people together that have a similar dilemma, problem, issue, difficulty, especially if it's something that's particularly heavy and unique and causes some form of experience that is heavily different, right? And makes life that much more difficult. People can unify often under such things, right? That part's pretty common. Oh, this is still too loud. There. Okay, so that's an understood thing, right? Human beings that have a similar struggle, there you go, can come together and unify in some regard or understand each other because of that very unique struggle. The more unique the struggle, the more difficult that becomes, but also the more potent finding other people with that struggle can be. Okay, so that's one. That's the duh one. That's the duh one. The other one that I think is more, I guess, theoretical in many regards, Luler, is that I do believe that people that are on the schizophrenic spectrum, including schizoids, have a way of thinking and experiencing life which is abstraction based, oftentimes, or meta based concerns and preoccupations. It's more abstraction than, but meta is like a word that most people kind of get more than your average neurotypical person. And I consider schizoids not only to be suffering from a personality disorder or some kind of pathology, because they are dealing with certain types of pathology, of course. There's a reason we're so fucking miserable. And I'm not saying that pathology isn't warranted, honestly. A lot of it are adaptations to an environment that seemingly hostile in many instances. But the point is, I think they have a different cognition and experience, and so it requires other people with that same predisposition, whether it is something that develops because of some other predisposition through childhood or it's something someone is born with. That is still the type of stuff I would like to see researched. It's having that same sort of intuitions about a lot of things and how we perceive things would allow us to be able to actually empathize with each other in a more effective way than just merely cognitive. But even in the case of cognitive empathy, many individuals can't do that as far as when it comes to like an entirely different way of experiencing things and looking at life. We can, right, because we had no choice, right? A lot of us develop a strong cognitive empathy because in our efforts to understand our environment and to adapt to it, we had to kind of figure out cognitively sort of what is it that causes other people distress and discomfort so that I can avoid those things and improve my station in life to some degree, so that I could either be left alone or, I can not be made to suffer in some capacity. So I think that a combination of the previous fact, the no del one, and then this element is what allows other schizoids to be able to understand each other enough to where they can support one another in a way that they wouldn't necessarily find any support in amongst neurotypical people. Right? Not because those people are malevolent or bad or anything. It's just because they don't experience life the same way. And yeah. If you have any further questions on that, be sure to ask Luller. Yeah, that's the end of that particular answer. That was long-winded as usual, like everything I do. Long-winded. I should just call it long-winded angst. So that's what I fucking am. Schizoid Longwind. Right, should be the name of the goddamn channel. And what's funny is that when one thing I have noticed about a lot of Zoids is they're either don't say much or say a lot as far as typing. Maybe not talking like I do, but typing, oh yeah, they write essays. Whew. And even the quiet ones, when they get going, they'll write essays. And they have essays going on up here a lot of the time. Just ramble after ramble and thought after thought about this or that. And they have a lot to say. Now, whether they actually say it, well, it depends on the individual Zoid in many cases. So, okay. So, what I actually wanted to talk about today, I know, right? Like, simple title. I'm trying to keep my titles simple. Somebody told me that when I keep my titles simple, I seem to get more people. I don't know how true that is. We'll see. Maybe it's something consistent, but I've noticed that when the topic, ironically enough, when the topic gets particularly deep or intimate or emotional, that's when people seem to jump on, which is hilarious considering the demographic, right? But I mean, that's what one would assume, but I'm not actually surprised thinking about it because I believe that schizoids, unlike the way they're described or how they appear, are deeply emotional people. It's just that they're emotional about things that wouldn't make sense to the average person. And oftentimes, if they are emotional, they can't really pick up on it themselves because they run under the assumption that which they would be emotionally connected to isn't valid growing up and stuff. So they become dissociated from their own emotional range. But when they're not completely disassociated from it, it's rather extensive. It's just it manifests in a manner that's unlike your average person. But in any case, let me change this actually to live chat. So I noticed that if I don't change it to live chat, it doesn't actually show me everyone. It's so weird. How do I have 7 people watching but 15 people voted? It's so wild. Like, why even vote? Like, it's so weird that somebody would jump on, vote, and then just go, I'm leaving the stream. Like why? That's so strange. I find that really odd. I have twice as many votes as I do people watching, which is, at the moment, I'm sure it'll change and fluctuate. But I digress. So the point of this is, you do that sometimes just to support. Oh, Tay, that makes it. Maybe they just want to support my efforts, but can't necessarily like watch the stream. So maybe I shouldn't talk. I'm not talking shit, but maybe I shouldn't say anything because maybe they'll stop doing that. I don't want them to. It's a nice thing that they do that. Okay. So what I want to discuss today in particular is defaulting to the thing that isn't live chat is kind of annoying. Yeah, it's really annoying. It always defaults to top chat, which it would make sense maybe if, like, for example, I had like 100 200 people watching. In that case, maybe, and then I would have to fuck with the chat, like speed and stuff like that. But I don't get anywhere near that amount of people watching, right? I'm not getting like 100 people. At most, I get like 20, and that's the highest it usually goes at a time. I definitely get a lot of views after, like more than 100, sometimes 200 views on the live streams after they're out, but definitely not during, or concurrently or whatever. Again, I voted for support, but I'm gonna go to bed, eat, buy, and if you, I'll stick around for as long as I can. All right, well, let's get to it then, Andrew. Okay, so I was thinking I want to start doing different types of streams, right? Sometimes it can be a little chaotic. If you see me upload a stream, or if I start doing a stream in the middle of when I usually should be doing a stream, it's probably not going to be a normal stream. I'm probably feeling particularly garbage, and I just feel like venting. But usually when I do a Tuesday, Thursday, or Saturday or Sunday stream, generally I have a topic in mind or some kind of idea that I want to discuss. Recently, I've been doing kind of like either I'm reading articles or I'm talking about a particular concept or idea or whatever. And one of the things I've kind of forgotten about, and I haven't done much of, considering the title of the channel, is very much angst. Things that are frustrating or disappointing, not just in life, but in all forms of places and channels and such. That's why I kind of asked today in the poll, like, oh, do you like listening to angsty music? So far, I got 16 votes. 69% say yes. 31% say no. Okay, that's fine. I wonder how many of those are schizoids, though. But in any case, it's just an interesting thing. I've always liked somewhat frustrated or angry music. It's always been something, even since I was in my early teens, and it still continues. Not that I don't like stuff that isn't. It's just I have a fondness for sad or angry or frustrated music. Again, losing track of myself. So I want to start doing something angsty once in a while and just discuss those topics. It doesn't mean I'm going to start ranting and raving like a madman, though there's a possibility. But I want to be able to discuss things that frustrate us in some degree or another, right? There should be a place to do that. I should have a place, and you guys should have a place. Yeah, if you decide to share, you can. So for me, I didn't want to make the title too long because, like I said, somebody said the short titles are better. So I'm going to have to figure that out in the future. But the subject I kind of wanted to talk about today was depictions of status, resource accrual, and things like that in media. Right? Like, so in other words, or just seeing it, right? And not necessarily media. It can be in fiction and non-fiction, but like this kind of interest in stories about people of high affluence and wealth, right? Regardless of what how it all turns out, right? But usually more controversy, the better, the more people enjoy it. But so anything from, say, things like popular films like Wolf of Wall Street, or just Wall Street for that matter, or any kind of movies that are about like crime and power and going up a social ladder or a economic ladder, movies that kind of sometimes glorify those things, sometimes they're just depicting them in stylish ways, regardless of how tragic they can be in many regards. Like one example was I recently watched a movie called House of Gucci, right? So I watched that movie. Wife thought, oh, wants to watch it. I watched it. It was a well-made film. I'm definitely not gonna say it wasn't. It was definitely a well-made movie. But some of the themes and the ideas that get espoused in there and the stuff it's depicting, I don't personally relate to. Like, I don't quite understand a lot of the motivations of the characters, and some of those motivations are things like, increasing one's social status, increasing one's just wealth, in order to purchase more items of high status. And in the case of the Gucci family, they were selling products at absurd prices because it represents status, right? The products themselves represented status and opulence of some kind. And to me, that's confusing because I want neither of those things. Like, I don't strive for either of those things. I know how valuable they are. I know how useful they can be in order to achieve actual goals. And I find it to be unfortunate, honestly, that it's a requirement. But nonetheless, I find it confusing and not intuitive, right? Many times people watch a lot of these movies and kind of sympathize or understand the difficulties that these characters are undergoing. And so it gets extra confusing when it's a combination of status seeking and power seeking and resource, accumulation plus interpersonal drama and dilemmas that I don't relate to. And I find abhorrent sometimes. So, for example, in the case of this movie, spoiler alert to anybody that hasn't seen it and wants to, though I doubt the people that listen to me talk are all that interested in, maintaining the secrets, not getting it spoiled for you. But there's everything you could imagine in such a story, right? I was never interested in the history of the Gucci family, so when I was watching it, I saw part at random episodes of The Shield, more for a meme though. I never got into it. But anyway, I'll get out. I don't want to get off on the tangent, Khalil. So I'm watching it, and a lot of the stuff that occurs throughout the course of the movie is stuff that I totally expected. And it's stuff that I was hoping would happen because I didn't know the history of the family. So I was like, oh, maybe these people, have their difficulties, but maybe they strive to be better in the face of, exorbitant wealth and just like gross amounts of like nepotism and stuff, despotism and everything else. Like, maybe it won't corrupt them all, right? And as I was watching it, one of the protagonists, which is the younger Gucci son, or the Gucci son, that was unconventional in that he was more interested in academic matters and wanted to be a lawyer and wasn't interested in wealth and was looking for... He had more interpersonal concerns, which, he was looking for love and a career and doing something he found meaningful or whatever. And so that was interesting at first. So I'm like thinking, oh, okay, this character's interesting. And then, of course, what ends up happening is they end up falling for someone. That person has their own ulterior motives. I tried to give that character the benefit of the doubt, hoping that they didn't have those very, very predictable ulterior motives. And they did. So, essentially, this character married said original, younger Gucci son for their name, but also ended up seemingly falling in love with him as a person. But they were definitely seeking the wealth and power, and because they felt entitled to it for whatever reason. And what's hilarious is that the Gucci character himself was uninterested initially, and because of the push from people around him to basically live up to the name and the status associated to it, eventually he felt pressured, started to do so, but then as time went on, he became corrupted by it and, tapped into whatever aspect of himself was filled with a desire for power and control and shit like that. And then eventually that, obviously, with an ambitious wife that pushed her husband into essentially becoming an even more ambitious monster than even herself. That eventually dissolves the marriage, which then eventually leads to betrayals within the family members, which evidently led to a hired hitman and the murder of one of the characters. Right. So, well, I'll just say it, the murder to the main male protagonist. And so, like, I'm watching all this, and I'm like, I'm not disappointed because I expected it, but I'm disappointed that something different didn't happen. That everything rather expected happened. Now, I didn't know exactly how it was going to happen, but it was pretty obvious that there was going to be nothing but backstabbing and betrayal and hate, and there's probably not going to be a single redeemable character or individual in this story. And because it was based on real events, I just assumed that increases, not decreases, the chances of having irredeemable, terrible people. Unfortunately, that's my own pessimism, and I get frustrated because I watch it to the end and I'm thinking, okay, so a bunch of people did what power and wealth usually does to people, and they turned on each other and everything collapsed. Like, who am I rooting for? Who do I feel bad for here? Like, the only characters I felt even remotely bad for were the children that came out of the spawn that came out of these two monsters, fucking and having their kids. Because, they are innocent in all this. And all they had to do was be surrounded, like I said, by opulence, and then eventually watch their love between their parents collapse, and so on and so forth. So I doubt those particular children ended up unscathed psychologically after that hot mess, especially the oldest one. The baby, not so much, obviously. Oh, oddly, well, actually, there was no baby initially. Well, one thing that my wife pointed out that I found interesting was that apparently there were supposed to be two children, but they only depicted one child in this movie. I don't know why they did that. I don't really care, honestly, but I find that interesting a little bit. Not enough to get to the bottom of it or anything, but yeah, this is just an example of a piece of media that's more recent. It's a Ridley Scott film, whatever that means. I think that's important. I think Ridley Scott did Alien, so I like that movie. And things like Prometheus were cool. But like, I don't know what it is that people or I'm supposed to get out of this kind of movie. Like, I didn't find much. Like I said, it's not a bad movie. It's a well acted film. It's a well written film. There's nothing wrong with any of that. I just don't understand what a person like me, supposed to get out of a movie like this. Outside of just a reminder of why people are disappointing. And I don't know if you guys have experienced that sort of stuff in some of those types of movies, right? Or if you watch something like that, and then when you express your own frustrations with the characters and what they do, people around you might think you're being either boring or depressing or who cares or this or that when you try to talk about these things. And so it's better just to kind of keep your mouth shut most of the time, because it generally will annoy people. That's been my experience for most of my life when it comes to a lot of things like that. Because I think the average person understands some level of security that comes with things like power, status, resources, and things like that, to the point where it's something that maybe not that to the extent of the Gucci family, but to some extent motivates them significantly. how people perceive them interpersonally, how they're perceived by society or their immediate circle of friends and family and things like that. Um, like how others perceive them is generally very important. And I think it just becomes pathological in the case of people that are seeking that much power and become corrupted. So I don't know. Like I get kind of like, That's why there's like a lot of TV shows about wealth and status that are very popular out there, and I just do not understand the point. I do not understand what people are getting out of it. Nor am I saying that's anything wrong with people getting something out of it. I just don't understand it, so I feel very kind of confused by it personally, and I don't know how many of you guys feel the same. Like, is that a common thing? Like that there's all these shows that like people watch about subjects such as that you just go, why? And that was obvious that this or that was going to happen. And then you just tune out. Right? So it doesn't have to necessarily be a conversation on like the topic of media and these sorts of things, but I'm more interested in talking about how these sorts of things don't resonate with you, and that in situations in which they resonate to people in your environment, and the instances in which when you either express confusion or indifference toward those things, that people might look at you like, what's wrong with this guy, or why are they so concerned with that, or this, or why do they look at things so differently when it comes to like pieces of media or commercials or anything else. But that was just an example of like a big piece of media. Like a small piece of media and kind of these ideas that go through my head would be and I had talked to my psych earlier today about this, because it's like this sort of stuff that preoccupies my mind. I'm sitting there and they showed a commercial for some kind of I don't even know. I don't even remember what the company or the product was. I really don't. I think it had to do with vehicles or home insurance. I don't know. All I know is there was a commercial today that I saw in which they had the corporate sponsors and they showed up. Supposedly they were going to do a game or some kind of charity or support thing. And for a soccer team in some like school, right? And of course, via la corporation, they of course chose a school of some kind with, probably some kind of kids that really needed money for their soccer team or some shit. And of course, it's like in a location that has many POCs and shit like that, because that's conducive to, the look of being helpful and charitable or whatever in the corporation's mind. And so then they said, oh, hey kids, we're gonna go ahead and have you make goals into this thing, because it's soccer, and every goal you hit you get $100 for your team, right? And of course, but you have to get past our goalie, and of course the goalie is like it's the whole thing's contrived, but the goalie is like some nonsense guy dressed in a mascot suit that obviously is going to have a very difficult time trying to be a goalie, even if they were to try their best. And so, of course, the soccer balls just keep going in. The kids feel like they're accomplishing something, and and I guess they make in 27 goals, and so they give, and the announcer, the corporate sponsor, corporate representative or whatever, says, oh, you guys won $2,700, $2,700 for your team. And all the kids are like, yeah, woo, right? They're all celebrating. They're all so happy or whatever. And, they emphasize like, this is what our company does to help people and stuff, and blah, blah, blah. And then end the story, right? So when I see that, and I've had instances like that, not just in this commercial or in this instance, but where I'll have people in my surrounding environment that might see something like that and go, wow, that's really cool they did that, or wow, that's neat that they were helpful to this people, or look, all those kids are so happy, or you'll see comments like that, say in the comment section, right, of such a video or a commercial, like, oh, that's so nice. Like, I don't know if you've heard those ones on the radio where they like supposedly really help this crying person with something. I think it's for insurance or something. I don't know what it is. And the person cries and says thank you, and then they're like, oh, and so they want to associate the act of charity and kindness to whatever the company's selling, right? And what bugs me is this is all that pops automatically into my head, without even trying. Like, it's just normal for me. I just see, oh, that's weird, because the cost for making this commercial, marketing it, putting it out there, getting the staff to create it, all of that costs way more money, significantly more money than whatever it is you gave to those kids in that soccer team that you supposedly cared about. And when I was talking to my psych, she tried to make the point. She tried to make this point. Oh, well, you know, if companies didn't try to advertise, maybe they wouldn't have done the commercial. And if they didn't do the commercial, they wouldn't have given that money to those kids. Right? And in my head, I go, I have nothing against them giving money to these kids. I'm just bothered by, well, one, it's hella exploitative. Uh, uh, two, it's pretending in a deceitful way to be something it's not. And then three, if they gave a fucking shit, then just go ahead. There's ways to advertise more passively, in which, say, you give all of the money that it would have costed to make that entire commercial to that group, and then let someone else write a newspaper article or online TikToks, Twitter links, or news segments about how great this company was for doing this. Let them do that instead of putting all this shit on display. Right? It bothers me, and I know it wouldn't bother the average person. In fact, the average person would either find two things about such a thing. They would either be thinking, "Oh, it's a good thing," or they would be indifferent to it. They would just go, well, whatever, they did something, or oh, that's cool, but they wouldn't think about it any further. That's like as far as it would ever go. And I'm not saying every fucking schizoid or whatever does that with this particular case, but they might do that oftentimes with a lot of different shit. And then when they try to vent or discuss these concerns or ideas, oftentimes they're met with a combination of either indifference, anger, or worry. Tay says, meh, it's like when you meet someone who genuinely likes watching golf or paint dry or something. Just, oh, that's your thing? Huh, okay. Live your life, man. I'm not sure what that's in particular reference to. Like if I see them watching golf or watching paint dry and they like it, I just go, oh, okay, that's cool. Like, if anything, if that person started explaining like some kind of very complicated reason for what it is that they find, the aesthetic beauty that they find in watching paint dry, I would actually be pretty interested. I'd be sitting there going, okay, explain this. Right? If somebody was like, I like watching paint dry, and they're like, and I said, why? And they say, it's just cool, then I'll get bored and walk away. But if they're like, they start talking about it as a metaphor or some shit to this or that, and this or that, and connected to, have all this like loose association connected to why, the Gucci thing. Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like, I can intellectually understand why they would like that. Like, my brain can go, oh, I understand why a lot of people would watch something like that, like a lot of those type of movies, and get something very different than what I got out of it. But I'm just saying that it's it's frustrating when you're trying to express your take on it and no one's interested, because everyone is generally experiencing a similar take already that isn't like that. It's either going to be a very simple take or it's going to be a take based on an interest in those particular things that are just unrelatable in every capacity. Like, one of the things I've seen on the internet that I just find like absurd, right, is people posting either like alpha or sigma grind shit about things like characters like Wolf of Wall Street type characters, or just characters like I forgot the lead for fucking what's that fucking Irish mafia Britain show? I can't remember right now. Shit. Like, I was watching it for a little while because I thought some of the story was kind of cool, but as soon as the show just has nothing but irredeemable, just annoying, power driven, status driven characters, I just lose interest so fucking fast. Because there's like nothing for me to hang on to there. Andrew, don't feel like a fraud. Oh, Peaky Blinders, Plucky Binders. No, it's Peaky Blinders. Thank you for reminding me of Plucky Binders. No, yeah, like I just like, yeah. At first, I was like, oh, this is interesting, and it does have some interesting side characters, right? But the main characters and the protagonist, they're just so uninteresting to me. Like, oh, good, he's really tough and he's smart and he shoots people and he he's able to be really like ambitious and blah 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 blah. It's like, okay, this is fucking boring. Like, I don't care about any of that. Like, some of the side characters that are like bordering on mental illness are more interesting. That are just violent or psychopaths. Like, a psychopathic character can be more interesting sometimes, and definitely a schizotypal character that's like also like a psychopath or something. Like, it has they have a combination or has narcissistic traits of some kind, and like a malignant narcissist schizotypal or something type character could be really interesting. They're usually not the main character, because oh, hey, what's up, Zen? Because those kind of characters will have like motivations that I find more interesting or relatable to some degree, right? Like, being a psychopath is cool and correct. Listen to Hollywood propaganda, be good. All right, that's why I find it funny, because like they'll post like TikToks and stuff of like characters that were really violent and crazy and psychopathic, and then go like alpha, or oh, this is how you grind, or this is how it's done, and I'm like, no, I don't understand. Or like I guess in other realms, it's like a lot of the girls that post stuff, or well, gay guys too, that post stuff saying how sexually attracted they are to like these psychopaths. Like, it's like, okay, like I it's confusing. Like, I don't find psychopathy. There's a difference between somebody that's eccentric, that's has like a lot of grit, that fights for what they believe in some regard or another, even if it's a villain. Like, there's villains that are very much ideologically, spiritually driven in some kind of abstract way, that it like they see power and money and status as a means to get some like end that they find to be like above and beyond important. There's like the villain in their family and shit like that, and I'm just like, wow. Did my stream die? I don't think my stream died. Okay, good. I'm just thinking, wow, that's not enjoyable or interesting at all. Like, I'm like, this is fucking lame. Like when I was watching something like Game of Thrones, right? Tywin Lannister, to anybody that watched Game of Thrones, this is the most boring motherfucker. I don't care. Is he intelligent? Yes. Is he capable and competent? Yes. Is he interesting? Not really. Uh, Tyrion Lannister was interesting, became progressively less interesting the more interpersonal his concerns became. And so on and so forth. And then when characters were being pushed by things greater than themselves in some capacity or more meta reasons, my shit keeps cutting off. Oh, great. Hold on. I don't know why it's doing that. Hopefully that improved it. God, it's so annoying. But when a character is being driven by like these more meta sort of things, like then it captures my attention. Then I'm like, oh wow, okay, interesting. They're being driven by like a concept or an idea that they would like lay their life down for. And it doesn't have to be like super abstract. It could just be like even something as simple as like virtue or some virtue of some kind, even if it's one I don't relate to or understand, like, but that they just stick to it via some principle or something. Like that's interesting. That motivates them more than wealth accumulation and status is fascinating, especially if it runs counter to things then like to status and wealth accumulation or resource accumulation. Like when that ambition runs even sometimes even runs counter to it, I find that especially interesting in a character, right? Like and this has always been, I think, the case, at least for me, since I was even a kid. Because since I was a child, I was a Spider-Man. Right? I liked Spider-Man. So I grew up as a child liking. Also, like Morbius, the living vampire, when he was like an anti-hero, and Venom. But I liked Spider-Man because Spider-Man went out there, fought crime, did his thing, but usually was either eating shit, getting made fun of, getting harassed or oppressed by the local authorities, and his attempt to thwart villains was being like miscast, misunderstood, misattributed, and they weren't making very much money doing it. And the only way they would make money being Spider-Man was to take pictures as Peter Parker of like things that or villains they were fighting. Like literally, that was like the only way they can actually make a living being a superhero. Like putting their life on the line and like fighting crazy things and difficult odds. And so on and so forth. And I find that more interesting because the character, even if it's not that complex, the character was being driven by a philosophical idea that they held higher than any kind of more materialist motivation. Because in fact, it was counterproductive to material goals. It wasn't making him rich. It was damaging his interpersonal relationships, such as his relationship with Mary Jane, because he believed so strongly in this idea. And partially, I'll admit, partially it was also fueled by guilt associated to the death of his uncle. But as you know, as the character developed further, it definitely went far beyond simple guilt. It was a true principled nature about what they viewed to be virtue, and they fucking fought for it and put their life on the line for it and ate shit and were mistreated for it. And when there's villains that do this, even though I disagree with the villain doing this, it's still interesting. That's an interesting thing. So TV shows or movies or media or literature about people just being shitty is just being shitty for the most base reasons, I guess I can't. I think that's why I don't particularly find things like true crime that interesting, because you like the only time true crime's interesting to me is when you're dealing with the case of a person that is like being driven by something outside of the realm of those things, outside of status, outside of uh, resource accumulation, outside of simple sexual like gratification. Like if they're being driven by like something really out there, even if I'm like, yeah, this person's a danger to society or a danger to other human beings' individual freedoms and should be stopped, it's still more interesting to me. It's far more interesting. And it sucks because a lot of media is not designed that way, especially now. And it's boring. And I hate it. As even if it's competently done, I'm just like, I don't. Why am I watching this? What is it I'm getting out of this? Right? Political scheming, interpersonal intrigue, and status hierarchy claiming. Like it's just boring. And I'm curious if you guys have frustrations or annoyance with how popular a lot of those themes seem to be. Not just in fiction, but in nonfiction as well, and in a lot of media, and and even beyond media, in some of the conversations, interpersonal communications between things like coworkers and people, maybe in your family. You know, their preoccupation with things of that nature, or drama of that nature, um, and how weird it could be. Andrew asked, by the way, yeah, I wanted to clarify something earlier because, oh yeah, Andrew, it's the same person. Andrew, earlier you said that you feel like a fraud because you're relating more to some of the stuff we're discussing here than you do with some of the schizotypal stuff. Honestly, don't feel like a fraud, especially because, as I personally discuss all the time, I think there really isn't, outside of very specific parameters. I think a lot of this stuff runs on a spectrum, and I think the type of pathology that develops is more associated with the amount of stress, trauma, and so on, and coping mechanisms of that individual. Right? I think somebody that's schizoid can definitely, with more trauma and more difficulty and more stress and anxiety and loneliness and so on and so forth, they could start developing other symptoms over the course of their lifetime that extend beyond their schizoid symptoms. That's not always the case, but could extend beyond into the more lower functioning schizotypal schizophrenia spectrum type stuff. There's a reason why a lot of kids that grow up to be schizoid had parents that were schizophrenic or schizotypal. There's probably like a similar, I would argue, and this is based on nothing, but based on just on the reading I've done and everything I've seen, I would argue it's probably just as likely that they had narcissistic parents as they had probably like some parents on the schizophrenia spectrum of some kind. It's somewhere in their timeline. And even worse, if they had like a parent that was both schizotypal and narcissistic, then yeah, I mean, it's possible. It's definitely it's very different, right? It might, if they're on the schizophrenia spectrum, they're probably not as interested in status and wealth, and interpersonal communication or gains. But if they're also narcissistic because of their own upbringing or other issues, they might be narcissistic in the sense that like it'll be a very kind of idiosyncratic sort of narcissism. So it'll be like based on parameters of status that they developed inside their own head. Um, that might not necessarily make any sense to anybody else. Like the way I would say, like, okay, here's like an example of somebody that's narcissistic and has status anxiety of some kind, but is also like say schizotypal, right? The way I would imagine it would be like the parent that is so obsessed with the mastery of a specific skill, like say the piano, right? Not wealth, not status for the family, not a lot of all these things, right? Or a good career or any of that stuff, and uh, you know, uh, traditional form of marriage or something, whatever, blah 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 blah. That's not to say schizoids don't have as much trauma as those. Oh no, for sure. Yeah, yeah. I like how Tay's jumping in there trying to like caveat me. Thank you, Tay. That's sweet of you. Um, but it's kind of like, say it's you have a parent that's like, the piano, music is everything, right? It is reality, it is the universe, it is all this, and my child will become a prodigy just as I attempted to be, and then so on and so forth, or I am or was. And so like that's kind of like Tay is awesome. That's kind of like, I'm sorry, Tay, for saying that you're awesome, because I know you hate that. That's kind of like how I imagine a narcissistic schizotypal parent would be, right? So they would like drive into the child that their worth is based on their aptitude at this particular skill, that is not necessarily tied to or social status or, or wealth accumulation, or conventional forms of legacy or tradition, right? It's more about like, this thing is so important to me, and this is my special interest that I need to invoke upon you to be just as like obsessed over. um Even if like that particular person is like destitute or is socially ostracized or something, right? uh I guess like the easiest way to put it would be like, if you had a parent that was a mad scientist, right? That was shunned by the universities and shunned by their fellow man because of the experimental and unethical nature of their work, right? And then you're the kid of that person, and they in their mind, status or meaning is only achievable through this particular field of interest that is in fact completely counter generally to like what is socially acceptable or wanted to climb in status, because the status that they view in their mind is only unique. It's unique to them and maybe a very small group of people that feel the same way. And so then they will treat their child just as a narcissist might treat a child, like a more neurotypical narcissist might treat their child based on more conventional forms of status climbing and association and shit. So like that's how I envision the schizotypal or the schizophrenia spectrum narcissist, right? um and it's funny because this idea isn't like so far-fetched, because it's kind of a trope in fiction. It's kind of a trope in literature and in comic books and stuff like that, and all sorts of even anime and stuff. It's a trope, right? This eccentric mad character that is so preoccupied with a specific notion or idea that if their child does not accomplish or become just as obsessed with them as in pertains to that goal, then that child becomes disowned or pathetic in their view. And of course, the child ends up suffering similar types of trauma as the child of a conventional narcissist, of a neurotypical narcissist, or normative ambition filled narcissist. I don't know how you would want to name it. So it's interesting to me. Those types of things, that dynamic is really interesting to me. I went off on a complete tangent. All right. So just give me 1 second, guys. I'm gonna step away for like a quick minute, grab a drink, and I will soon enough return. Let me play a track while I'm gone.
I live in sickness, I live in spinning. The whole wide world is a carousel. I stood in line, and now the ride's beginning. I could still do so much more if I don't kill myself. I live in nausea, in nausea, in a spotlight shaped like a spiral. I'm a Bible, got sacred idol. If the whole sick world was a smile, I feel sick. Still feel sick. Still feel sick. I feel sick. Still feel sick. Still feel sick. Still feel sick. Still feel sick. I feel sick. Still feel sick. Still feel sick. Smile like a rainbow. Smile like a crescent moon. Just keep doing what you're doing. Okay. Just keep doing what you're doing. Smile like a crack in the earth. Like a curse, like a corpse, like a wound. Smile like a rainbow. Just keep doing what you're doing. What am I supposed to do?
Gum stained black hoodie, gray soul and static in my eyes. Try to see the future, but I'm not sure if it applies. Underwater in a piston makes hurt. Trying to see the world through the anhedonia. Feels kinda like my soul is burned. Too late to find out that I'm like the other girls. It's just too evil to be stylish. Don't tell me this is too dramatic, cause I like it.
Still feel sick. Still feel sick. I feel sick. Still feel sick. Still feel sick. I feel sick. Still feel sick. Still feel sick. I feel sick. Still feel sick. Still feel sick. I feel sick.
Okay, I'm back, guys. Thanks for that. Wait. So I'm gonna open it up to the live streams and stuff. So if anybody wants to jump on and talk, they're more than welcome to. I'm in the annex live stream portion. I'm gonna go ahead and unmute my stuff. So if anybody wants to chat it up or whatever, you're more than welcome to. About whatever. Including the topics that I've been discussing. Or if you're wondering what they are, I could just mention them to you. Oh yeah, man, Tom Waits is the best, William. So while I have the attention of a few of you, and I guess this is a good point for me to just quickly do it. If you're interested in supporting the channel or the server or anything else that I'm working on, because it's all connected, the server, the channel, my other efforts, collaborations I'm working on, shit like that, it's all connected, all toward the same goal of schizoid sort of understanding, advocacy, and support, and shit like that, because there just isn't anything out there for people like us at the moment. So at least not much. I won't say anything because I'm working with a few people that have something. But in any case, please support me on Patreon. That's the easiest. Or Ko-Fi. I think I only have like one person on there on Ko-Fi or Coffee. But if you like that one better because, you know, it's more ethical or something in your mind. Or I don't know. I don't know what. People just have preferences. If you don't like any of that shit, PayPal's fine. If you don't like PayPal because of other reasons, you just Litecoin or Bitcoin me or Ether or Litecoin. I think I have listed in my description. That works. Or you can super chat on this thing. You can super chat. If there's a video that you watch that I did, or a conversation that I set up, that you were like, oh wow, that was really helpful and I liked it. There's a thing called Super Thanks, which is basically like you can give me like this highlighted comment and money because like that video was particularly important to you or helpful or something. And all that money just goes to me, keeping the lights on and continuing be able to do this more consistently, and eventually turn this into something more of a career and other things as time goes on. Outside of that, if you want something in return, like say you want something more tangible in return, you could join the Schizoid. It's a support group run by myself and Joanna of the channel Mind Mastery. If you haven't checked out her channel, look at Mind Mastery on YouTube. Great channel, awesome content. Currently more schizoid focused. Really, really chill person. A lot of Zoids like the content because, well, she just has that kind of chill demeanor that is a lot easier to kind of listen to without all the gimmick, and shit like that. Also, there is a really nice description I would recommend on there about this particular group. I think it's the most recent upload. I got to start just like promoting the shit out of that even more. But it's a great video where she discusses what this group's about and the efforts that me and her have in mind when it comes to this. It does cost money. It's not free. I'm fucking sorry. I wish it was. But until I have a millionaire schizoid bankrolling me, or until the government decides to subsidize things of this nature, unfortunately, it's going to cost money. We have it set up now. We changed it to something that I think is more conducive to helping and supporting and coaching people. Because Joanna themselves is a psychological coach that is placing most of their emphasis currently on this topic. You pay up front. You get 6 sessions. They're hour-and-a-half meetings on Zoom in which you can discuss, more schizoid-specific things in practice, some social stuff with people that are more understanding and comfortable, and talk about your grievances and your more deep, just sort of difficult to express oftentimes internal dilemmas and turmoil. So it's open. It's not free, but it's one of the few things that's out there for people that are diagnosed schizoid, or maybe are in a country in which, or a location in which they couldn't get a diagnosis but have been considering themselves as such for an extended period of time at this point. But this might be of use to you. Okay, that's it. There's the shill. There's the annoying shill that I have to shill, because otherwise I gotta fucking turn off the lights and all this shit anyway. Like, if that happens, nothing pans out. Hold on. Hold on. Okay. All right. So, all right. So now the channel or whatever is open to anybody that wants to hop in, talk about whatever bullshit or opinions they had on what I've been discussing, or whatever else. So this is the portion in which you can join me if anybody decides to. It's random. It really is. I don't even know if it has to do with the topic, honestly. Sometimes I have people hop on, so like nobody hop on, and then I have times where like fucking 5 or 6 people decide to jump in, or if not more, right? And then I have to actually like try to remember the order in which they showed up so I can give them enough time to say what it is that they want to talk about. But generally, yeah, it's kind of random. I usually like to ramble on for like an hour or so, maybe less, before I open it up, only because like it gives people enough time to get comfortable and maybe get ready to prepare some stuff they okay with talking about or discussing, or whatever. But it's not always the case. So I don't know. I don't know what's happening today. I don't know what's going to happen today. It might. It might. Nobody. I'm trying to work on a piece. I'm sketching while listening to you. Tay, do you even have to ask? Tay, come on. Come on, Tay. Do you have to ask? Just fucking do it. I told you that before. Throw you into your computer screen. I said, absolutely. Whenever you want, you can jump on and draw. It's a lot more interesting than sitting here looking at my stupid face, hoping something interesting happens, which is generally going to be a disappointment for anybody that's watching. That I can promise. No, Tay, I don't care how serious the topic is. Doodling is always acceptable. Always. 100% of the time. I don't care if I'm talking about like PTSD. You can doodle. Doodling, it occupies the eyes and it could calm and entertain people watching, including myself. So it's perfectly fine, Tay. 100% fine. Okay, I see you're on, Cole. Cole, just tell. I'll see once you start your camera. Once you start your camera,
Okay. Hold on, because I'm hearing you in the live stream and on the thing, and I gotta get my shit together. Give me 2 seconds.
Yes, go get your fecal matter together. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Hi, Snoozer. What's up?
I just thought of something surreal right now, actually, when you're talking about doodling.
Cereal? Like, are you being like? Is that
Surreal.
surreal? Okay. Okay. Yes. Let's hear what the surreal thing is.
Okay, maybe it's because I'm a '90s kid and I remember how it was like before tablets and shit.
Mm-hmm.
But remember finger painting, and like it was sort of irrelevant, and then you're not supposed to do it because like only kindergartners do finger painting.
Yes. The only issue I would have with something like finger painting is I don't like how messy it is. And that's about it. Other than that, I have zero judgment as far as finger painting goes.
Well, what's been happening lately is like you go out and buy something and then you have to sign it, and they don't have like a pen, so you have to doodle with your fingers like you're a kindergartner again.
That's true. Like a lot of times when they don't have a pen, you have to like draw something. That's probably one of the few things in this world in which you're still using your fingers to draw. As an
That's what I'm
adult.
saying.
That's fascinating.
And so like
Yeah.
something that you've disregarded your entire life that's childish is
Yeah.
now required to do business.
In many cases, yeah. In many cases, a lot of businesses don't have a pen at hand, or if it did come with a pen, it got long ago destroyed over time, right? And they never replaced it. Assuming it ever had a pen to
Yeah.
begin with.
Yeah, I just did some paperwork for like a office, and like I had to doodle with my finger with all my signatures, and they all looked horrible. I'm like, man, I should have just studied harder in kindergarten, you know?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, be a better finger painter.
You'd be doing signatures with the best of them, right? At that point.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like that's something surreal to me. Like time has changed something like that.
That is fascinating. That is fascinating. That's actually really interesting. You're gonna get me thinking about that. God damn it. And I'm gonna start thinking about other things of that nature that might have changed over time. Right? Like there's probably a lot of stuff that would have been considered somewhat strange or foolish in one period of time, or childish. That's pretty common as an adult now because of some of the technological changes and advancements and norms. That being, yes, drawing with your finger. I always found it odd too because, I mean, my first experiences with it, the only thing I immediately popped into my head is, wow, this is really stupid because it doesn't look anything like my signature. I don't understand the purpose of this other than to pretend that I'm signing something. I cannot sign. My signature is already pretty inconsistent and strange to begin with. Always has been since I was younger, but I cannot do my signature with my fingertip. Like it's just
Yeah,
no.
it's like the advancement of technology has not usurped our rituals. Like ritualistically, you had to sign for things in common law and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah,
And
of
now it's
course.
sort of obsolete now, but yet we still do the ritual.
Well, it
But
wouldn't
we
be
do it in a
obsolete.
childish way.
Yeah. It wouldn't be obsolete if like they just had the proper technology to make it not so, but it's obviously not effective enough, or that you can just use your fingertip and do this. Like I mean, we're not designed, like we're not used to writing. Our muscle memory doesn't associate the fingertip movement on the screen to the signature, right? The signature, the muscle
Yeah.
memory associated to it is completely different than this. And I've tried even using my fingertip like this to attempt, but then there's limitations to the technology itself that don't allow a proper signature, even if you were to use a pen, right, with the little rubber nipple, you're still not going to get it quite right on a lot of these, unless it's like an incredibly high quality um, machine or something. But like my immediate thought was like, this is dumb. This doesn't look anything like my signature. And if the purpose is to be able to verify my signature, if there were ever a legal matter associated to the signing of this particular credit card payment, they sure as shit couldn't really use this, right? Like they would look at it and go, "Wow, that must be a forgery. It looks nothing like your signature." It's kind of stupid.
Well, if you think about it,
You
there's
want to
probably
know
a
what my
subcategory.
signature looks like?
Holy shit! Wait, who just talked? Dougie, you're really loud.
Hi,
Sorry,
Dougie.
It's okay. All right,
but
let's-
you want to know what my signature looks like?
what does your signature look like, Dougie?
I'll have to like put it up on like stream, but
Oh, okay. Wait, I thought it
wait,
was gonna be like
wait,
something.
no.
Is it gonna be like? Do you have?
No, I
words?
should probably
Maybe just
just
describe
describe it.
Yeah. I was gonna say.
It looks like an 8th grader drew it. It was all straight lines. It's and like first capital letters. They're both squiggly, so they've been drawn over twice.
Oh yeah, that's what my signature looks like, sort of. I've always been so uninterested. Hold on a second. Oh,
Sorry for interrupting.
No, it's okay. Hold on, I gotta say night night to
That's all I had to
the
say,
daughter.
really.
So give me 1 second here.
What's up, losers? What are you guys doing?
Nothing
I'm eating-
much.
Yeah, I'm eating stale French fries.
Oh, god damn it. Now I'm jealous of someone eating stale French fries.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like the paradox is I don't want to eat them, but at the same time I don't want to waste them. So I'm sitting here eating them.
Yeah, it's fair.
But it's like, why do I have loyalty to French fries that are stale? Like they gave them to me as stale. You know?
I mean, if you abandon the French fries, then, who's going to eat them if you don't?
Exactly.
Give them a fighting chance, yes.
Eyes back. I have to say night night to my 2-year-old.
That's fine. We were talking about stale French fries while you were gone.
Oh well, that's an
We
important
were.
that's
I was
an-
entertaining the masses while you were gone, Ames.
Oh wow, the masses, all 10 people that are watching. It's amazing.
Yeah. That's
You're
listen,
already
that's a
entertaining
lot.
the masses with your doodling. So, is this a
Oh,
doodle
yeah,
or?
that's-
Oh no, this is a piece you're working on. This isn't a doodle.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were. Yeah. Okay, you're not doodling. You're just working on your shit.
Yeah.
Cool. Do your thing. So, yeah. As far Dougie left. Okay, well,
Hi, Dougie.
Oh, well, they left already, so they couldn't hear that. I don't think. But that's nice.
He's probably lurking again.
Oh, that's fine. No, as far as like, yeah, my signature is terrible. It's just like the first two initials and like a bunch of seemingly random squiggles. Because even when like I was younger, I kind of have a vague memory of somebody, like my parents telling me, "Oh, you need a signature, right? Because you need to sign things now, or you need to start signing." So it's like, "Oh, I need a signature." Okay, it's like, why? And they're like, "Oh, because it represents like you, and when you sign things." And I'm like, how often does that come up? Like, who cares? Like, couldn't I just draw like a figure eight with sticks coming out of it, and it would still represent? It's like, no, it's supposed to be like your name. And in my schizo ass kid brain, I was just like, why does it have to look like a name as long as it's like a image or a thing that's unique to me? Uh, wouldn't it be better if it wasn't a name, because it would look even less like letters that are going to be consistently appearing amongst all different signatures? Like, that's what's kind of going through my head. So I thought, how come it can't just be like a bunch of random ones and zeros and X's? Like, why does it have to be the name? But upon the insistence of people, when I was younger, I said, okay, well, I'm just gonna do my initials and then a squiggly line that goes up and down in certain ways, and then that's it. Because I'm like, well, how is that not just as efficient? If anything, it's less likely that somebody can like forge it, only because the squiggles are like based on my muscle memory.
Yeah, like I was never good with writing. Like my kindergarten, first grade, second grade, they would make me do those stupid ritual test things where like you have to do the cursive over and over again.
Oh
You
yeah,
have to
yeah.
follow
I had to do that. You
Yeah,
were probably one of the. How old are you, by the way, Snoozer?
I'm 30 now.
Okay, so you were probably one of the last generations, or the last few of the people that were being like forced to do cursive as a child. I don't even think that they don't force
Yeah,
any kids to do cursive anymore. I find two things funny. I found it funny that they forced us to do cursive to begin with, but I also find it even funnier the people that were forced to do cursive as a child, that now as adults and parents complain that kids today, they're not making them do cursive. That's wrong.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
think
Like
that's
we do the
funny.
ritual.
Yeah, hey, that
Yeah,
ritual with the cursive, you ain't doing it no more. Like, and so both of it, like, I don't relate to either the person that grew up with it and thinks it's something good at the time I was doing it, or now.
well, if you think about it, we were like a paradox generation to where like we maybe are getting trained to use it, but we're not reading cursive anymore. Everything is analog. Like it was typed down with typewriters. Like cursive was sort of an obsolete system before we were even born, essentially.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
then we were,
I understood its use initially. It was very useful initially. Um,
I don't even remember what the use was. What was the benefit of cursive again? I
well, I
forgot.
mean, okay, so this is just my based on my basic understanding, and there's probably more complex reasons for it. But think about it like this: it's a more streamlined way of writing words faster, and not having to lift the pen between each letter. So you can actually write a lot faster by hand using cursive than if you were to use just uh, and it would oftentimes take up less room on the page too. So,
Hmm.
like, if I were to write the name, let's just say James, right? I can still do cursive very poorly. It looks hideous, but I can still kind of remember how to do it. If you were to put J, A, and you would have that pause between each letter, because you would have to like stop, pick up the pen, move to the next part, right? J, and then M, and then E, and then S. So you would have those spaces in between, and then you would also have to kind of like stop writing, stop writing, start writing each time. Yeah, it was about speed, and it was more about speed than anything. And so, but to write James in cursive, it would be the J, and then it would just immediately connect to the A, and then immediately connect to the M and the E and the S. And with the muscle memory, you would be able to write it far quicker than you could, say, straight lines and associated with and they wouldn't even have to be exactly consistent. Like as long as the shape is there and it's somewhat legible, like uh, your cursive wouldn't even have to be perfect in order for somebody to be able to read it, right? It was faster and more efficient in a time in which, say, typewriters didn't exist. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's just sort of funny how there's always a spectrum and dichotomy with the English language. Like there's a
Oh,
proper way of spelling and a proper way of writing, and then there's a normal way of writing, and then there's like this dichotomy. Like Latin words are more better than Germanic etymology words. It's very strange.
yeah, shorthand. So shorthand combined with the cursive and everything else. Yeah, absolutely. It was basically like um, same thing with things like the advent of the acronym, right? Like it was manners in which to convey and distribute information and produce it a lot faster because the advancement of technology and civilization required you to be able to produce information a lot faster with population increase and everything else, right? Like it wasn't enough that like you could write one book. You need to be able to write multiple books, and then eventually you need to be write books fast enough for a printing press to be able to make duplications of that fast enough. And before the typewriter, obviously the fastest way to write would be cursive, and then it would go through the printing press, and then you'll be able to duplicate that even faster. It's just efficiency. That's all it was. But eventually, cursive became obsolete with the creation of the typewriter. Well, maybe not initially, but once the typewriter became if it like faster, like the fastest it can be, cursive is completely obsolete outside of aesthetic, right? So people find certain elegance or beauty associated with cursive, and I can understand that. It does look pretty. Oftentimes, it can be aesthetically pleasing to the eye. It looks elegant, but that's the only thing that really became that, and nostalgia and tradition became the only reason why people kept advocating cursive, because like I said, with the typewriter and then eventually the computer and the printing machine, the printer, it became less and less, progressively less and less, more and more obsolete. Now it's just used as a means of conveying a certain style or aestheticism, right? That's why it's hilarious, but there is, fonts that look like cursive, right? Because it's just for reproducing that look, that aesthetic. It's not because cursive is easier to read or better in any capacity. In fact, it's not at all, especially now because most people are not reading in cursive. So cursive is anachronistic at this point.
Yeah, I forgot shorthand even existed. I'm looking at shorthand right now.
It's interesting. So there were just advents. There were just advents of technology and efficiency that became obsolete over time. That's all that shit is. That's all. It's like anything else. Like the knowledge of being able to use a printing press for the purposes of printing newspaper is far more obsolete now than it was in the 70s. So that knowledge is progressively automated and it just obsolete. And so I see cursive as the same thing. I just go like, it would be to me complaining about like they don't make the kids do cursive anymore would be the equivalent of complaining that like newspapers don't use like old school printing presses anymore. Like the same way.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's so wrong. It makes the news worse. It somehow hurts the news that we get, that it's not being done in this previously efficient, now less efficient manner.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden we have to bring back finger painting when we thought that was childish and we put that aside.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, because the idea was, oh, it's just a digital signature. It's so much. You notice as well that because I don't know if you've come across this instance, and I find it interesting, is that even in the case of the digital signature, you have occasions in which especially online, like when you're signing something online and obviously you don't have a touch screen available. They just make you type your name in, and then they just consider that to be a digital signature because you check a box. And
Yeah.
and
Weird.
it's just really funny because it's like, well, one, it's no longer a signature. It's an authorization of some kind. Maybe that's a better word. Um, but it's just funny. How is that a signature? And then there's still groups that are holding on to the signature idea, and they still insist upon you printing out the form just to sign it when everything else was done digitally via the PDF or Acrobat. And so
My job is like that. Yeah. It's
yeah,
awkward.
you use software to do everything on the piece of paper except for the signature, in which you have to print it out, sign it, and then upload it as
Yeah.
an image
Fax it.
file. Fax it. Jesus, that's hilarious. But email it or DM it to somebody as an image, a PDF with the now physical signature, which is no longer physical because you've scanned it up into. It's
It's an illusion. It's a picture of your signature.
Exactly.
And yet we live the lie that it is a signature.
Of course. It's fascinating.
Yeah, like QWERTY keyboards is another example of that. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's things of that nature that really interest me and fascinate me. That other people don't even contemplate. And I don't. It's not that like I think, oh, this is so much more important to contemplate than not contemplating it. It's just my mind just intuitively goes in those directions. Like I'm not trying to think about these things. In fact, it's disruptive, at least in my ability to function in a neurotypical society. Because
That's not even a joke. Yeah. Is that bad?
No, it's not bad. It's disruptive. It makes life way harder for me to function because of the rules and priorities and values that neurotypical society builds around. So I'm sitting there worrying about or thinking about these, not stupid, because I'm not gonna. I used to think these things are stupid. What's wrong with my brain? I go, no, these things are not stupid, because if these things are stupid, everything's stupid, and that's okay. Either everything's stupid or everything's valid. Um, so it's just like it would get in the way of the framework that's designed, because this is not the priority. Okay, were it to be a priority concern, then all of a sudden your preoccupation with it is valid and considered socially asocial and acceptable. It's gross. I hate it all.
Yes, like I'm literally living that right now. Like I'm supposed to print out paperwork. I'm supposed to have someone else sign it.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, you should have this other person sign it," and they think the other person's supposed to sign it. And I can't even be bothered to print out the paperwork because I don't care.
Yeah, I know. Like there's like,
and I'm the bad guy now.
No, of course you're the bad guy, Snoozer. Of course you're the bad guy. If you don't mind, I don't think have you been on before, Snoozer? I think you maybe once or something.
Like 2 times maybe 3.
Just as a reminder, just because I like to have a point of reference, you don't have to share this if you don't want to. Are you diagnosed with anything?
Last time I saw you, I wasn't. Now I got severe depression and anxiety, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, so you just got they just gave you the basic bitch, severe depression and anxiety.
Yeah, I literally told them like, hey, I'm a schizoid, and they just sort of disregarded that. Like, well, based off your symptoms, you have depression, severe depression. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, well, the problem with like going up to them, even if you do your own like study on the matter and it's deep and very relatable, oftentimes the problem with just coming to them and saying that is that a lot of psychs and stuff don't really like you doing that for whatever fucking reason. Well, actually, there's legitimate reasons in certain instances, but in others, I think it's contextual. And then the other problem is that a lot of the psychs you might encounter have never come across anyone that they would even know how to diagnose that.
I don't even think he looked it up. Like, I think he just disregarded what I said, and he went. Because the doctor, I told them, and the doctor assistant, like, you know, like they have like the student doctor with the doctor.
Yes,
You know?
it's always the best.
Yeah, and she's like, "Well, you can't be schizoid because like you wouldn't even come to us if you were schizoid." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like I already heard this story before
Jesus
from you.
Christ.
I'm
That's
like,
like
okay. And so they called me on
fucking
bipolar.
awful.
Yeah, and then they're like, "Oh well, we're just gonna say you're bipolar and you should go see a specialist." So I go try to find a psychologist. I couldn't find one, and then I found a what the fuck are they called? Like they're so similar in the names. The one what's it?
Well, would you consider yourself bipolar? Like, do you have episodes of mood fluctuation and mania and stuff? Like, I mean, you could be schizoid and bipolar. That's not an issue.
I think I'm schizoid with like a food sensitivity, and then like I drink a shit ton of caffeine, and then I'm manic. You know, like if that
Oh,
makes
yeah,
sense.
there's plenty of schizoids that can get manic, but aren't bipolar. But yeah, no, I
Yeah.
know. Yeah. But
The psychiatrist just said I'm just depression and anxiety, severe depression and anxiety.
yeah, that's the problem. Like, oftentimes, something, well, because schizoid is considered a personality disorder, it takes a long time, usually in a lot of sessions, before somebody's willing to diagnose anyone with a personality disorder, right? And so unless you get enough sessions with that person, they're going to be reluctant to ever do it. And then two, a lot of psychs are not that well versed, or therapists, if they're not like necessarily MDs, they're not well versed in abnormal psychology or personality disorders to that depth. So
Yeah.
so
Sort of.
oftentimes, yeah, they'll just kind of disregard it or not really understand it, or just go, "Oh, this person must be some like armchair loser with depression that's just like trying to be special."
It's just the thing is, I get nothing. I gain nothing from this. Like
No,
there's
zero.
benefits to
That's what's funny. Like, there's zero pluses.
Yeah, a hypochondriac, they would pick something more fancy than.
Well, no, a
schizoid.
hypochondriac, just don't confuse it. A hypochondriac will pick anything that they might loosely associate to they have it. I don't think they're really thinking about status climbing while choosing their conditions. I think a different kind of. I think it would be more like, what do you call it? The kind of person that would do that would be probably something closer to, like, what do they call it, Munchausen or some shit.
Well, what I'm elaborating on, like, let me rephrase, like they have like catastrophic thinking. Like, for example, if they have a cold, it wouldn't be a cold. It would be like they're having fucking nose cancer.
Yeah, the sinus, some kind of sinus cancer.
Yeah. Catastrophic thinking.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. So if they're having like trouble with some aspects of reality checking, it's automatically going to go into like DID or schizophrenia or something.
Yeah.
Or like something more extreme, like a full-blown schizophrenia. Okay, I can see what you mean in regards to catastrophic thinking. Yeah, like I often really find it funny because, like, there is zero benefits, like socially or otherwise, even like both socially and pity, or status or anything. Like, there's zero benefits to like going, "Oh, I'm schizoid." Most schizoids that like find, like, self-diagnose or like eventually over time go, "I think this is what's happening with me." They just get really sad and more discouraged because they're like, "Oh, great! According to all this, it's permanent, and I'm going to be sad forever."
Yeah, and it's just like there's no institutional reinforcement, there's no supplementation, there's no knowledge. Like, I literally just finally had the conversation with my family about it, and both my mom and my sister are like, "Well, you're not schizophrenic." I'm like, "No, like I'm
yeah. That's the problem too.
symptoms.
If they don't understand what schizoid is, people are just gonna hear schizoid and they're gonna go, "Oh, you see things?" Yeah. That's like very common.
Yeah,
but also, go ahead.
And it's just like, I'm like, no, I'm not schizophrenic. I have no positive symptoms. And then they're like, what does that even mean?
Yeah,
like,
what does that even mean? I don't see shit. Like, I don't have visual or auditory hallucinations.
No, the closest thing I have before the medication was snow blindness. Like, it's like you see, like, it's like an artifact from like adrenaline and hormones where like you're seeing snow or static.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So there's that one, and then the dizzy where like the room is moving around. Like that's not a hallucination. That's just a artifact of the eye dealing with hormones. You know what I mean? Like I don't hallucinate at
Yeah,
all.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. And then what I find even more interesting is um, I've talked to a lot of schizoids that basically don't have positive symptoms, but if pushed far enough, develop some temporarily.
yeah, I would say like my baseline is schizoid, and if I get stressed the fuck out, I get schizotypal. Like I get super
That's what I
paranoid.
mean. The delusions start kind of creeping up, right? And I think that's what's funny is when a lot of schizoids, they might have very idiosyncratic thinking or whatever, but they usually have a pretty strong grip on, I guess, their material reality or whatever, and that's kind of what makes them even more depressed, to be honest. And and but when they have enough stress and enough anxiety and their working memory gets pooped on enough, yeah, they'll start diving into very like overarching delusional thoughts about their own existence, to the point where like they can no longer really like nest any context associated with like their immediate environment or conditions. Like it's just everything is terrible, everything is awful, everyone is evil, and the world is completely garbage in every way. And I want to go, jump in front of a train. So
Yeah, and that's like the macro of it. The micro of it is like you try to go get gas and you're just paranoid as fuck, and you don't want, and you're like watching everyone around you, and you don't want people near you, and you don't want to talk to people.
yeah,
And then when you're driving, you think like you're being watched, but you're like,
I mean,
of course you're being watched. People are driving.
yeah, but it goes further and further after that, right? And then
Yeah,
something like certain types of delusions depress you about existence can turn into paranoia, and then paranoia can turn into obviously a lower your functionality, and then eventually, maybe not always, but in some cases, even something the isolation combined with the paranoia, the high stress, lack of sleep, insomnia, and everything else. Oh wow, your brain starts making you hallucinate. Not surprising. Uh,
yeah. Like me, it's like I gotta go lay down, and then like I have snow blindness or something. You know.
Yeah, yeah, but I'm just saying, like, I mean, there's instances in which there's recorded instances in which neurotypical people that didn't have any kind of associated mental illness were isolated from sensory and people long enough to where they started developing hallucinations. So, like,
Yeah,
I'm
like
just like, well, if they can fucking deal with that with enough isolation and everything else, yeah, what's to say person with this kind of eccentric abstract thinking is not going to have similar, more kind of wild versions of the such, if they are isolated and alienated and disconnected from everyday interactions for like years or months at a
yeah,
time. So
yeah. Like you're hypersensitive. Like even the lights, I just gotta turn them off because everything's just so strong. You know.
yeah, yeah, and that's very interesting to me. I like it. Ali Meyer says, I used to be a heavy weed user over 20 plus years. Whenever I had a break from it, I'd hallucinate, but seem spiritual healing experiences. So that's interesting, Ali. If you ever want to talk about that in the future, you're welcome to jump on the server. I like hearing about shit like that. It's fun.
Funny enough, like he was asking me like, "Hey, so you smoke weed?" And he asked me that like multiple times. Like I'm like, "No, bro, I don't smoke weed." like,
Who did?
because like I guess he was trying to correlate if weed was causing me to have some sort of issue.
Oh, you mean your psych?
Yeah, the nurse site for the
Oh
site.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. They always associate like it's so annoying. Like they think
yeah.
like they're like, oh, are you using too many downers, or are you using this or using that? Yeah,
Like I was completely transparent. I don't think he believed me though, because I've never smoked weed. Like I bought shrooms once, and they
yeah.
told me to like use them when you're in a positive mood, because you want good vibes, right? And I never used them because I'm never having good vibes. If that makes sense.
Okay, well, see, that's what I'm hoping we can change for some people like that. Is maybe we can start producing some good vibes in a comfortable enough environment.
Yeah,
So
BB, just go touch grass, bro. Like, what are you doing?
no, touch grass. Yeah, no. I'll touch ethereal grass. Thank you. For before I touch regular grass. Um, but yeah. Like it's just like what touch grass means to somebody with this kind of alternative form of experience or cognitive experience is very different. It's very different than what neurotypical would be touching grass like. Because like if I touch grass in the ways that people suggest, I feel either uncomfortable or nothing, and I feel like I'm not getting anything out of it.
Or worse, you're sitting there like stuck in your own head, and you're like in a deeper thought process of grass than you should have.
Yeah. And then
Like
I'm
you're
like,
dancing
wait,
on a
is this what it means to touch grass? No,
like
I don't
I'm on
think
a green
so.
desert like that's artificial that people like mangle every day to make it like uniform, and then like they're all sharp little shards that are cutting me. So you know that grass itch, you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's exactly
Yeah,
what's
so
happening. There's like little
yeah,
tendrils, like little hairs. Oh
this
my
lawn is a
god.
lie, bro. It's not real. Like it's not. It's a fucking artificial
It's not a
construct.
lawn. It's a living plant.
It's a green desert, bro. It's not natural, man. Like if anyone who studied permaculture, they would know. Like it's artificial. It's not real. It's not a
Yeah.
like
Yeah, you go out into a valley, you're not going to find a lawn.
no, like unless you have some sort of like megafauna like buffalo causing these like great
Yeah.
grasslands, like it's not real.
Yeah.
Nature hates a vacuum like this. Like it's not natural.
Yeah, there's
But
always
they want you to
there's
go
always
touch grass.
weeds. There's always weeds. Just
Yeah, weeds are the
and
pioneer plants, man. Weeds go to make shit happen. And we live this lie and we make grass and they tell you to go touch grass. That's like some sort of like benefit, like you're going out to nature, but it's not nature. It's not real. It's not.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it should say touch mushrooms.
Yeah, like mycology, like, and we kill the mycology of the soil, but like you need mycology in the soil because the mushrooms
So
are the.
what would you say is better? What should they touch if they're not touching grass? Since it's a construct,
I would.
well, touch.
I mean, yeah, that'd be cool. Like,
so touch ancient redwoods.
Yeah, touch ancient redwoods, like some sort of like food forest or like some sort of like environment that was grown with
It's just funny
diversity of
because
flora.
you do realize, and I get what you're saying, but you do realize that when they say touch grass, they're not taking into consideration any of this, right?
Exactly, like they're going through some sort of like physical
It's a
like
metaphor.
ritual.
It's a metaphor though for become was it mindful of your present existence as it is at that moment, right? But what's funny about it is that if your present existence at that given moment is very different than the people around you, the way
You're having like little mini existential dread over some shit that didn't even think that far ahead.
well, yeah, and you wouldn't be having as much existential dread if you had someone near you or around you that went, "Oh, I also think those things," and then you go, "Oh, so it's okay," and they're like, "I think so," and then you feel better. Oh, okay. Other people think this. I am also human. I am not insane.
Yeah.
I am merely different.
Yeah.
And like that's kind of like there's a kind of a negativistic pessimism regarding the uniqueness of a person that deals with, say, schizophrenia spectrum or schizotypal spectrum stuff. Like they don't come across enough people in their lives that they can relate to or connect to in whatever capacity, and so they start developing this idea that they're so unique that they were designed to suffer and be alone. And so, which isn't true. We're not. We're very limited. We're a limited edition type of human, but we're definitely not so unique that there isn't enough of us out there that you can't find other human beings that you can connect to in this capacity. It's nuts, especially with the internet. See, because like, okay, very quickly, because I am going to end this stream fairly soon. Has anyone in chat put a 1 in chat if you know what I'm talking about? And I'm curious if anybody here in VC has read it. Has anyone read the book or read the manga version? Because Junji Ito did a really good manga version of the Japanese literary masterpiece that is No Longer Human. Anyone read or read No Longer Human? Just wondering if anybody in chat. 2 if no, 1 if yes. 2 if you've never read it, 1 if you've read it. All right. Snoozer, have you read it?
I don't think I have. It sounds familiar, but I don't think I read it.
Okay. No Longer Human. T-Sips. Okay, so you know what's up. Cool, you've read it. No Longer Human is an incredible book. It was written in 1948, I believe. And it basically tells the story of what, honestly, somebody might debate this with me or whatever, but what is essentially a kind of schizoid avoidant sort of individual, right? And so this individual, the story takes place in the 40s, I believe, or earlier, because it was written in 1948, but probably earlier because it's kind of semi-autobiographical to the author, Japanese author. But they basically describe being a human being that doesn't relate to any of the humans around them in any capacity. And they don't immediately explain in every way why, but in the story they're basically describing masking nonstop with their environment in order to avoid people connecting to them, intruding upon them essentially, and expecting things of them. Expecting things of them that they themselves don't find of any value. So they come to the conclusion early in the story that they become the clown, and they want to not be respected. They want to be somebody that is not mistreated, but also silly and mediocre and funny enough to where they're not respected so much that there's a lot of obligation going their way, right? So they make the decision to become the clown. So they would intentionally mask as fool that was funny. It was a funny fool. It wasn't a contemptible fool. It was a funny fool, right? The guy you want at the party because he does funny things and we laugh at his expense, but isn't damaging or annoying, right? So a jester, right? So he became a jester of sorts throughout his life in the story. And so he masked, and the story gets progressively dimmer, darker, and grim as he gets older. The mask starts failing. People start seeing past it. He comes across a dilemma where he's haunted by people being able to see him. And he constantly describes himself as being an individual that cannot connect or would be understood by anyone. And so it just goes on and on like this, and it gets really dramatic in the sense that, like, it leads. I mean, there's everything from, like, there's a lot of backflips occurring around this guy, and other sorts of fucking violence, as well as all that super fun child abuse shit that occurs to the character, right? Like, because again, the character is very passive to the point where, like, he was letting people take advantage of him in more than just emotional ways early in life, because they were just, like, not interested in wanting to, like, cause any further confusion within themselves or any further drama or expectation. So they just let everything happen to them because they were just kind of reconceptualizing the things that were happening to them in a way that I guess would not traumatize them the way a normal person would be traumatized by them. So like a lot of this sort of stuff is happening, and his preoccupations, the character in No Longer Human's preoccupations that are causing him anxiety and stress are very relatable things, right? He's just saying like, oh, these expectations, these things people need from me, these concerns that they have, and so like, you know, that's what's shredding him apart, and all this fear and anxiety. And you have to think, this is a guy, this is a character that's growing up in 1940s or earlier 1930s Japan. So they don't have a way of just expressing themselves freely without dire repercussions, such as expulsion from his family, poverty stricken, perhaps even death. And so, so this is an individual that was doing everything they could to survive, but also because of the conditioning of their environment, when opportunities would arise in which they could find some sense of meaning or happiness, they could never actually acknowledge it or see it, and would make very poor choices. So, in my mind, No Longer Human is basically the story of a schizoid at their worst, and in conditions that are so inhospitable that their problems degrade further until to the point where it's just a tragedy, right? And it's a fucking depressing ass book. I'll tell you that right now. It's not a fun book. And if a schizoid reads it, it's especially not a fun book because it's going to have elements that are relatable in there. But the way I experienced it when I read it, I saw it as kind of a warning, right? Especially to people or schizoids that exist today, depending obviously on your conditions in your country. Because if you live in, I guess, what is normally considered as problematic as it is a third world country, you're going to have a similar time as the character in No Longer Human. If you're on the schizophrenia spectrum or schizotypal spectrum. But, well, or if you're in a country that's far more spiritual, maybe you'll have the opposite. You'll have a good time because they'll think you're like a prophet or a cleric of some kind. But whatever, just it's all contextual. But the point is, yeah, this guy's life collapses over time, but also people in the wake of his decision makings, lives end and collapse around him because of this fear and of this mask, right? Like, it's kind of like an early example. Has anybody wait, hold on. I haven't even looked. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. An early example in the story, No Longer Human, in which this occurs is he gets, spoilers, I guess, but it's pretty early in the book. He gets hurt doing some clownish shit, right? Masking. He gets hurt, breaks a leg. He then is taken care of by two of his cousins, right, in one of the family's homes. And in his need to appease whoever's in front of him and perform, just so they would just let him be, he was telling both of the female cousins that they were both lovely and amazing and special, and that he feels better and he feels like he's getting better around them because they're special. Right, because he knew that's what people like to hear. And so this character doesn't feel that way about either of them. But he wants to please them so that it goes smoothly. And so he does this, but they both start falling for the character, right? They both become infatuated with him. Because the character himself is supposed to be a handsome person, right? They're a handsome person to their chagrin. In fact, they probably wish they were much uglier. But they're a handsome person, so both these women become infatuated, and they're sisters, and they're his cousins, and eventually they both have a romantic liaison with him, and then both of them find out about this, and he's trying to please everyone, and they start turning on each other, the sisters, and it leads to some murder and blood and crazy stuff. And he's just sitting there going like, why is this happening? Why I thought this is what people wanted. What's happening? Why are they, turning on each other and killing each other and going crazy? And then he can't fix it anymore, so he runs and he leaves it all behind again. And this is like a consistent thing that happens in this story. This is a very oh shit! Can you even see taste coloring? God damn it! Did I fuck it up? Sorry if I fucked it up.
It's turning on and off. It's fine.
Okay, well, I'll try to leave it on. But so like one gets pregnant supposedly, and the other one goes crazy and stabs the one that's pregnant, and then the other one's pregnant and says, "Oh, we're gonna have a baby," and he just runs from all that obligation and everything. He just leaves it all behind, but this theme keeps reoccurring over and over in his life, the character's life, of he masks, people react to certain types of things as he tries to please his environment in whatever capacity he can, and then it starts collapsing in on itself, and he just ends up alienated, alone, and confused, and desperate, and afraid, and full of regret and resentment. And it's rough. It's a rough goddamn read. If you're not into reading novels very much, then just read Junji Ito manga version. He captures it beautifully. I always thought when I read Junji Ito, I thought, this guy's got some zoidy shit going on, this Ito. And then he did No Longer Human adaptation, and I was like, uh-oh. You don't just decide, hey, I'm going to do No Longer Human. And what's funny is the two adaptations that Junji Ito has done, because he's like a horror manga novel guy that's pretty well known. The two adaptations he's done were fucking No Longer Human and Frankenstein. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So I'm like, those are some pretty tough identity stories. If you know the depth of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and the questions it brings up regarding humanity and the self. But in any case, yeah, it's a fucked up story, and I recommend it because it's very relatable. But like I said, I don't see it as like a prophecy for Schizoid. It's like, oh, this is how you will end, like the character from No Longer Human. But that's definitely where things can go psychologically and otherwise, and tragically, for an individual that feels that alienated and that disconnected from his fellow man because of his experiences. Because even in No Longer Human, during the nice moments, right, the nice moments of the book where he's at peace, or he finds some brief moment of respite in which he feels happy and not just like relief, because he describes in the book, never feeling truly any kind of true happiness or sense of meaning. But in the moments in which he does, they're always very abstract. It's always really kind of weird shit. Like he connects to other, like the women in his life. If he finds some aspect of them that he like connects to, it's really abstract shit. It's usually something like they're like a metaphor or representative symbol of some concept that he finds aesthetically beautiful, right? And that's what he finds. That's why he's drawn to them, not because that particular person is unique and special. It's the idea that person represents that they become infatuated with. And as soon as that idea or that concept starts degrading, or the reality of the situation sets in, the relationship in the story starts collapsing. And he becomes indifferent or disconnects himself from it and wants to ghost it, essentially. Like he goes from relationship to relationship in the story. Most of the relationships he finds himself stumbling across because of women becoming infatuated with him because he's both handsome and mysterious or whatever. And then him finding some like abstract idea about them alluring. It's never like, it's rarely just, oh, their physical beauty or something of that nature, or whatever status, or who they're, what whose daughter she is or any of that kind of stuff that a lot of people might be concerned with during his time period in Japan. No, it's always like some artistic aspect of them. So the more artistic, in fact, the more artistic and depressed the woman was and tragic her history was, the more attracted he became to them. And that's what was funny, because he would commiserate with them in their misery. And he would find a connection with them through that misery. God, that book's incredible. One last part of it before I end the stream I want to mention. Hold on. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm back. The last idea. Well, I can talk about this one day. Maybe I'll do like a full. Should I do like a full video on it, where I just discuss every aspect of the story? Maybe I should. One day, maybe
You
I'll
could do you could do a poll on the Discord and see what people say.
Yeah, but I don't think anybody would have anything against it. It probably could be of use. Right. It's up there in some of the most depressing books ever written. What's funny is that like it's I feel like if somebody reads it that's not like this, not like the character or relatable to the character, they probably read it and go, "Oh, this is just like the story of a sad misanthrope," right? It's kind of like if you've ever read, I know it's a totally different kind of book, but if you ever read Catcher in the Rye, it's like, unless you kind of understand the really kind of idiosyncratic thinking the main character experiences, you're just going to think of it as the tragedy of like some mentally ill man. Right? Like you're not going to be able to like find any affective empathy toward the dilemmas of some of these kind of misanthropic characters, if you will. But anyway, what was I going to say? One of my final thoughts on No Longer Human. Oh yeah, here. This is where the big. If you don't know this, it's pretty big reveal. It's not. What's funny is that it's not horror. Like, okay, this is what's crazy about No Longer Human. If you're probably a regular person, you'd read it and go, "Oh, this is just a depressing tragedy of somebody that's like mentally unsound." But if you're a schizoid and you read it, there's a good chance you're going to think it's both relatable, tragic, and a horror story, because you're going to relate to possibly some of the fear and discomfort and existential dread that the character goes through in the story and describes. It's going to be a horror book. And that's why it's funny that Junji Ito, a horror manga creator, decided to make an adaptation of this, because he really does a good job at displaying the horror of the characters' predicaments and situations with his style of art, which is, relies oftentimes on like body horror and stuff. And he gets it. Let's just say he gets it. There's no I feel like Ito gets it because he's drawing it right. Anyway, the big reveal, as far as like, interesting little portion about this book is this, and it's kind of fucked. The guy who wrote it, God, I'm awful with names, but look it up. The Japanese author who wrote it, I believe the same author grew, if I remember correctly, they grew up in like in Europe, but they were like a second generation Japanese man. But anyway, which probably lent itself to further, maybe alienation by their peers and their environment. Who knows? Because of racial aspects or whatever. But that same author, the reason it's considered autobiographical to some degree, but still fiction, is because that same author was suffering from a lot of problems, like depression anxiety and everything else. And then about a month, I believe, after publishing the original novel, he and his romantic partner did a double suicide. So yeah, and what's crazy is that that's kind of one of the themes, one of the running themes of No Longer Human, is this kind of double suicide thing. Like, and it's pretty intense because that's how the author's life ended, along with someone else's. So that led that and a bunch of other sources led people to believe that this is more autobiographical in nature. So it's fucking sad, man. Like, keep that in mind while you read it, and then it's even more heavy a book. But I don't want people that are like schizoid to read it and think, oh, this is gonna make me feel worse. It doesn't necessarily make me feel any better, but it gives you some hope, because then you go, wow, this guy lived in far more hostile conditions for somebody that probably had this issue. And also, they didn't have a means to connect to anyone in a relatable fashion, because there was no internet, there was none of that shit. There was there was no communication for this character for the most part outside of, you know, their immediate culture and subcultures in there in Japan in the 1940s and 30s. So yeah, it's fucking rough. It's fucking tragic, man. But it makes you think, like, I have other decisions I could actually make that this guy could have probably not made or had a choice in. And yeah, it's fucked. It's fucked.
Yeah, you know, well, there's certain things that are more socially acceptable than they used to be. You know, like before, like if you were in the negative melancholic mood, you just have to walk it off, and people will just look down on you if you don't. So it is more socially acceptable
It
nowadays.
depends on the culture. It depends on the culture. But yeah, in some cultures, the specific types of melancholy was acceptable, especially if you're familiar with a lot of Victorian shit. Like, it was like grieving was like a fucking show, you know? Like, it was like you were expected to be deep in your melancholy for an extended period of time, and if you weren't, it was like actually socially unacceptable to not be, especially as a woman.
Oh yeah, like I forget what it's called. It was the same thing in the Irish culture as well. They have some sort of a event for grieving. It was pretty radical.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it can like fucking be extensive. And so, you know, Melancholia was fine. Listen to Dowland. Um, okay, remind me of that later. But yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it depended on the reasons for your melancholy, right? That would be more or less socially acceptable, and a lot of the more acceptable reasons would be of a conventionally interpersonal nature, right? So, you know, if you were having issue, if your melancholia was that of Vincent Van Gogh's, you were probably going to be considered a madman by most. But
Oh, just for clarification, it's called Irish Wakes. That's what I
Irish
was talking about.
wakes. Yeah, there's a lot of death traditions that are very extensive depending on the culture. They're interesting too, but it's of a coping. To be honest, I think some of them are especially to regular people, or some of them are actually very conducive to grieving, depending on what they are, within moderation, right? I think overextended forms of grieving is probably not healthy, but also very abrupt, short forms of grieving that are socially, you know, kind of like truncated forms of grief, as being the acceptable format, is also just as harmful. I think it's definitely up to the individual. But anyway, yeah, good book, good read. Check it out. Read the original novel and read the Junji Ito version because he really captures it in his imagery. My opinion. Like a lot of the people that read that are fans of Junji Ito, horror manga, and then they read No Longer Human because they thought it was going to be a horror novel, like a horror manga, like a conventional, because that's what he does normally. He does like either like ethereal or eldritch style sort of cosmic horror, right? A lot of the times, or he gets it's either like eldritch stuff or cosmic type shit, or it's like kind of like uh like phobia related and things like that. But this book is it doesn't have those elements, and so there was like, it's funny, I was reading some of the comments on the release on like Amazon, and they were like, what was this book? It was just depressing and sad. It didn't have anything scary in it. And I'm like, for you perhaps.
Yeah, they don't see the details and the
well, they don't relate to it. It's not an intuitive thing. You read it and you're like, god damn, like this is horrifying. It's just so much existential dread that doesn't involve Cthulhu and giant cosmic monsters, but it's just as terrifying as one that would, if not more so, in many cases.
Yeah, because it's just raw energy. It's not like an external force. It's just energy itself. Yeah.
Yeah, I would consider it a psychological horror novel and tragedy, and psychological horror for people that could relate to the horror the character's experiencing in some instances. And a lot of the stuff the character does is unethical, immoral. But the reason why they do it is basically an extreme cope and adaptation, psychological adaptation to trying to like survive in his own skin, and shit like that. Like and there's a lot of instances in which that's what's happening. He's hurting people without the intention of wanting to hurt people, on just fear based, just running away and abandonment of situations that he can't psychologically handle, or become too much for that character. It's fucked because it's not like he moves on from tragedy or damage that he unintentionally does to both himself and other people and just moves on from person to person uncaring. No, he's sitting there just haunted and devastated by each and every person that he negatively impacts through his own, with his, by his own decision making and his need to get away and disconnect from things that he can't connect to. Like, it's fucking awful. It's fucking awful. Like the cousins, like I said, the cousins who killed each other. One that killed the other. Like, he was just living with nothing but just hurt and pain thinking about that. Guilt. But why did thoughts like, why was he ever born? Why I think he describes it as his 10 misfortunes. He has 10 misfortunes. And it's really funny because if you go in the section when he actually describes the 10 misfortunes, a lot of those things that he considers to be misfortunes would be considered not to be misfortunes by a lot of people. They would be considered like normal things. But to him, he considered them curses upon his existence. It's fucking terrible.
They had deeper meaning to him, yeah.
Well, yeah, they were like things that I think one of the 10 misfortunes was being born. But one of the other misfortunes he describes is like a familial connectiveness and like expectation, and all this other stuff that would be like things you live up to or drive people's ambitions to become better people, were things that were just heart-wrenchingly destructive to him and his soul and his mind. And that there were curses that were literally dragging him to hell. It's like crazy, man. All right. Man, it's a heavy book. All right. So thanks, guys, for joining me. Thank you for listening. Hey, Sayaha, stream's over. Sorry. But watch it as a VOD later. I would recommend watching it as a VOD later. Oh, it went away again because I'm stupid. Okay. Oh, what's this doodle? I didn't see it. What is that? What is that, Tay? I like it. Is this like a big sad cloud thing following?
Yeah, it's his name's Jonathan. This is Jonathan.
Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
he read the book.
Huh? He read the book?
He read the book.
Okay. Are you ever gonna read that book, Tay?
I actually tried reading it when I was younger. I have to visit it again because I stopped halfway through.
Because it got boring, or
No, I felt personally attacked.
yeah, it's
I was like, all right, bitch, I'm not gonna read.
it's a sad fucking book. Read the Ito manga version just for the art, if you can find a
Yeah,
copy.
yeah.
It's really nice if you like Ito's art. But yeah, it's incredibly good. All right, well, I like your doodle. I see, like, just even doodles like that. Like, we could fucking get a doodle like that, throw it on a T-shirt, put Zoid Void on it, and fucking sell that shit.
Oh yeah, yeah. Zoidoid is very sellable. I will say that.
Yeah, it's got a good pitch, right? Even
tells it to read it.
Yeah. Even what's funny is that even like like fucking normies that are just like into like spooky shit, they'd probably like buy it just because it looks cool and it sounds neat. Like,
Yeah, and it is like Halloween season, you know.
There you go, right? Halloween season. Now we'll just sell it to like the goth markets. They'll buy it all up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a little talk bubble saying "read no longer human."
Yeah. No longer human for the win. Yeah. Okay, so all right, guys, thanks for joining me. Thanks, support on Patreon and everything else if you can, and whatever else. It helps me focus on this stuff. And join. There's still a lot of time, but join the Schizoid group coaching therapy thing. It does cost some money, but there's still a lot of time to sign up, and there's a few spots left. So please check it out if you don't feel like you don't have a lot of options as far as like something that might be able to help, deal with some of these feelings and difficulties because of, it's not exactly the most popular or well-known thing people deal with. Yeah, check it out. Might be of use to you. Okay. All right. I guess that's it. Let me, wait a minute. Where's my little thing? Why is that there? Go away. There. Okay, there we go. All right. As usual, when day is dark, always remember happy day. And I will choose some kind of song to play toward the end here.
Lead dissolved in acid of light.